In today's video, we are going to discuss the content of chapter 2 from the novel For the Life of Laetitia. Let's begin. So let's summarize the content of this chapter. Lacey recalls that she had rarely seen her father before. When she did, his gestures were limited to giving her $1 for a snow cone or a Christmas doll, which Ma dismissed as drunken generosity. Ma, her grandmother, openly criticizes him for being an irresponsible father who, despite becoming a supervisor and owning a car, never properly supported Lacey. When Orville appears at their home after Lacey's exam success, he arrives with parcels of gifts and nervously greets Ma, probably because he is guilty, who initially confronts him coldly, showing her lingering resentment. He proudly boasts about showing Lacey's name in the paper to his boss and insists that she should live with him in La Porta now that she will be attending secondary school. Ma interrogates him about his responsibilities, whether his wife agrees, if he would provide books and uniform, and if he would guide Lacey properly. But she leaves the decision to her husband, her sons, and Lacey's mother abroad, delaying her full approval. Now that we have a better understanding of what chapter 2 is about, let us move on into the setting and the different environments presented. We'll begin by looking at the physical environment. We see Ballytear as a lively, crowded rural home, especially during August vacation when all the children swarm around the car until Ma snap. All of you find yourself in the backyard on page 13. That moment shows the energy of the extended family life, but also the close quarters of rural living. At the same time, the distance to La Porta reminds us how isolated the village is. On page 16, Lacey says La Porta meant nearly 2 miles on foot, then about 4 miles to Ballytear, junction by bus or taxi, and a long bus ride to La Porta. Finally, Orville's car with the back seat full of parcels, as seen on page 12, is a marker of movement and status. Not everyone in the rural area have a car, so it highlights both physical mobility and his new position as a supervisor. Let us now take a look at the social and cultural environment. Family life is front and center in this chapter. The extended family system is strong. Cousins, siblings, even godchildren all live or stay at Ma homes during the holiday. That's a cultural tradition in the Caribbean, where child rearing and responsibility are shared. Gift giving also appears as an important custom. When Orville arrives on page 12 with the back seat of his car full of parcels, which turned out to be presents for me to reward me for having passed my exam. He's not just giving gifts, he's trying to buy back his place in Lacey's life. We also see cultural expectation about girls and responsibility. On page 17, Ma asks pointedly if Orville will make sure Lacey doesn't run wild in the town and get myself in trouble like so many of these high school girls nowadays. This shows how female behavior was carefully policed in their society, connecting education with moral responsibility. Let us now take a look at the historical environment. The common entrance examination plays a major role here. In the Caribbean of this era, it was the gateway for secondary school and upward mobility. Passing the common entrance meant opportunity, but also sacrifice and change. For Laetitia, it meant leaving Ballytear and facing the costs and distance of school. And this can be seen on pages 11, 12, and 16. At the same time, Orville's new job as supervisor reflects another layer of history. Ma criticizes him on page 11. She says, no, he was a big supervisor, driving motorcar and all, and still wouldn't help his child in a decent and proper manner. This is very telling of a patriarchal Caribbean society, where men could rise in public life, gaining respect and status, but still neglect their duties as fathers or as men of the home. The irony is that Orville boasts about Lacey to his boss boss for prestige, but in the family, he hasn't fulfilled his role as a father. Let's now take a look at the political environment. The chapter also drops a small but important detail about government policies. On page 16, it says, a student bus pass to ride free on the bus. After independence, Caribbean government saw education as a tool for nation building. So these policies were meant to expand access, but the reality was different. Buses were unreliable, and families like Laetitia's own still face costs and struggles. The effect is a sharp contrast between political promises and rural realities. Next, moral and religious environments. Religion shapes how the family views Orville. On page 11, Ma declares, less said, the better. Leave him to God, huh? He will meet his judgment. So help me, he will meet it. This shows how Christian faith guided moral judgment in Caribbean society. For Ma, religion is both a comfort and a framework of justice. It reinforces her authority in the family while also exposing Orville's moral failure as a neglectful father. Now that we've done this, let's just take a look at the characters presented. Now, these are all the characters that were mentioned in chapter 2. Note that they are all not major characters. So let us now talk about the major characters in chapter 2. Let's begin with Lacey. Lacey isn't described by her look. Again, little information is given about her physically, but by her sharp feelings and observations. On page 12, she remembers, when my father appeared in front of our house that day, the first time in many years, my grandmother did not greet him warmly to begin with. That line shows just how aware she is of the conflict swirling around her. Her exam success has shaken things up. Suddenly, her absent father is back, her grandmother is on guard, and everyone is deciding where she should live. Now, this is important in chapter 2 because Lacey is the catalyst for change. She doesn't cause the drama, but her success in the common entrance forces the family to confront old wounds and make new decisions about her future. Now, let's take a look at her father, Orville Cephas. Orville is characterized not by his looks, but by his behavior. He's seen as nervous, boastful, and is trying to win the respect of Ma, her family, and Lacey. When he arrives on page 12, he grinned nervously, Lacey says, and waved a limp hand. Good afternoon, Ma Willie, showing unease at facing Ma's judgment. Ma notes his status while biting criticism. No, he was a big supervisor, driving motor vehicle and all, and still wouldn't help his child in a decent and proper manner. On page 11, his attempt at generosity with the car seat full of gifts, which in turn were presents for Lacey. This highlights, again, his attempt to make good with Ma, but also highlight the areas in which he has been lacking as a father. Now, this is important because Orville is seen as the disruptor and a symbol of patriarchal pride. He reappears to assert himself in Lacey's life, triggering the central conflict with Ma and highlighting themes of hypocrisy, duty, and status. Finally, let us look at Ma, Wilhelmina Johnson. Ma is outspoken, and she dominates this chapter with her strong voice, her faith, and her authority. She doesn't mince words about Orville. On page 11, she says, anyhow, the less said about that man, the better. She even scoffs at his new position, saying that though he was now a big supervisor, driving motorcar and all, he still would not do his job. Her presence is so commanding that when Orville arrives on page 12, Ma was standing in the doorway, her two hands on her hips, regarding him with a face of stone. And she's practical too. She interrogates him about, does the wife want Lacey there? Will they take care of Lacey and take care of their responsibility for buying books and uniform and ensure that she remains under control? Here, Ma is seen as the gatekeeper for Lacey's future. She represents tradition, morality, and maternal authority. Her role is to push past Orville's sudden gift and promises to make sure Lacey's best interests, her education, her safety, and respectability are protected. Let us now take a look at the narrative techniques and literary devices used. Let's begin with first-person narration. Again, the story is told from Lacey's point of view, and this is what makes it so powerful. She doesn't just tell us what happened, she lets us into her own thoughts and feelings. On page 12, she says, for example, when my father appeared in front of of the house that day. For the first time in many years, my grandmother did not greet him warmly to begin with. That single line shows both what happened and how she's processing the tension between her grandmother and her father. This first person point of view is what gives the novel its coming of age quality, or its build on romance style. Because we're hearing directly from Lacey, we see her journey not just as an event, but as growth. Every moment, her father's sudden reappearance, Ma's stone-faced disapproval, the debates about where she should live, becomes part of her emotional and intellectual development. It's not just a story about education, it's about her maturity and identity taking place. Let's look at the use of contrast and irony as narrative techniques. The chapter also thrives on contrast, and it's where irony shines through. Orville boasts on page 15, Ma Willie, let me do my duty as a father. Yet, Ma immediately cuts him down, reminding everyone on page 11 that now he is a big supervisor, driving motorcar and all, and still won't help his child in a decent and proper manner. This irony is sharp. Orville, who's been absent for years while living in the community next door, suddenly wants credit and responsibility now that Lacey has achieved something worth showing off. The use of contrast and irony here helps to uncover the hypocrisy, that theme. It peels back the shiny surface of Orville's car, parcels, and the job title to reveal his long history of neglect. And for Lacey, watching this back and forth is a lesson in adulthood. She begins to see that family pride and paternal responsibility don't always line up, and that adults often wear masks to protect their own image. Let us also look at the use of symbols and motif in this chapter. Orville's car isn't just a way to get around. In chapters 1, when it was mentioned, it was seen as symbolic. No, it's a recurring motif in the story, and every time it shows up, it tells us something new about class, mobility, and the theme of hypocrisy. Ma calls him out by saying he's a big supervisor driving a motor car and all. This line shows how the car marks Orville's rise in social status and also financial. He uses it as a badge of pride in a patriarchal Caribbean society. When he later arrives with the back of the car full of gifts and parcels for Lacey, the car becomes more than a vehicle. It's a stage, a way to perform as the proud, responsible father. But the irony is sharp. The car might suggest progress, yet Orville, as a man, hasn't progressed at all. He's still the same neglectful father, no, just dressed up with noise, parcels, and showmanship. The car works as a motif because it pops up again and again to reinforce themes within this novel. It highlights the gap between appearance versus reality, between upward mobility and moral responsibility. And for Lacey, riding in the car is both literal and symbolic. It's her journey from the trace to the town, from childhood to adolescence. But it's bumpy, noisy, and embarrassing, just like the uneasy path of change itself. Let us look at the parcels that the father brings, which are seen as symbols. When Orville pulls up on page 12 with the back of his car full of parcels, these parcels become powerful symbols. On the surface, they look like love and generosity, but when we dig deeper, they reveal something else. Orville is trying to buy legitimacy as a father. Years of absence cannot be erased with shiny gifts, and Ma points this out. The parcel connects to the theme of parent-child relationship in a patriarchal society. Orville represents the absentee father who reappears when it's convenient, when his daughter's success brings him prestige. In his mind, provision equals parenting. But for Lacey, the parcels are bittersweet. They are tokens of pride, yes, but they also highlight emotional neglect and absence behind them. These parcels, they symbolize tension between appearance and substance, love and duty, pride and neglect. They force both Lacey and us as readers to see the uncomfortable truths within these patriarchal Caribbean households, to look at progress and recognition, and that they often come wrapped in contradictions. Let us now look at the themes presented in this chapter. The theme of education and opportunity comes to the fore. We also see the theme of parent-child relationship, this tension between Orville and Lacey. We see the theme of poverty versus upward mobility, where the family worries about the cost of Lacey's daily travel to La Porta showing what life is like in the rural area, while Orville's scar and supervisory position symbolizes the possibility of middle-class progress. We see the theme of gender role, where Orville embodies patriarchal authority, claiming rights as a father despite years of neglect. We also see the theme of family and community authority, where Ma insists that decisions about Lacey's living arrangements must involve her mother, her grandfather, and her uncle, basically the extended family. And finally, we see the theme of religion and morality. Ma invokes God and God's judgment when condemning Orville's neglect, showing her Christian faith and how it serves as a moral compass and a way to enforce justice within her family. This has taken us to the end of the video for today. Please remember to like the video, leave your comments, let me know what you want me to do next. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that good old notification bell so that you can be notified when videos like these are posted. Bye!